it got a bit of a reputation for being over toxic, and then recently it seems to have made a bit of a comeback. And like you say, it's proven to be arguably a very good alternative for using oxy for the last sort of 3-4 days before stage if you want to get some nice fullness.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to the podcast with Dave Crossland. I'm Scott McNally, and all of our programming, it's always brought to you by you, the people of Patreon. Thank you guys very much for your support. We've got some Patreon questions today, and we are brought to you by evalbloodanalysis.com. If you're using gear or you're not, you just need to get your lab work done. And if you're in the UK, you can get it done by Dave at evalbloodanalysis.com. He's got some great staff all throughout the UK. We're also brought to you by Strom Sports Nutrition. For those of you in the UK, they've got great and health and performance supplements, especially for you guys on cycle. Supplementsource.ca for our Canadian folks. And, of course, TrueNutrition.com. Use our code THINK for high-quality, third-party tested supplements if you're here in the States. Dave, people enjoyed the games we've been playing on the show. We did a top 5 fight for the best oral. We did, what was the one before that? 3 words to describe each steroid. And today I have an easy game for you. Plus we have a topic of Superdrol. But before we get to Superdrol, I wanted to ask you, somebody mentioned a comment. He said, you know what? Anavar is my number one. If I were trapped on a deserted island and I could only have one compound, one steroid that is, it would be Anavar. Now, assuming that your test levels are all met, let's say you got your TRT with you or whatever, what would be your deserted island compound? You're thinking real hard. I can hear you thinking. You all right over there? David?
Yes.
What was that?
I was thinking.
Oh, I never saw that before.
It doesn't happen very often. I wanted to give the problem a proper thought.
Okay.
You know what? I'm actually going to be really boring and say test.
More test?
Yeah.
So you already have test.
Mm-hmm.
You have TRT test. So you want more than TRT. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I kind of was thinking that too, man, because you could do an awful lot by just saying, hey, maybe I'll take double that this week, you know?
Yeah, I just think, let's say if we look at let's say we look at Primo.
Yeah.
You're limited to how much you take because otherwise your estrogen is going to get way too low because you've only got a baseline test.
Yeah.
So Primo, which means that you're not going to get a great deal out of the Primo because you can't fucking run it high enough. Deca, you're not going to have anything to control its potential size. Tren, you're going to end up killing yourself.
Hey, we can't say that on YouTube, but yeah.
Sorry, you're going to end up unaliving yourself.
There you go. Thank you.
That's no problem. Or if not, probably wank yourself into oblivion. So it's going to be one of the two. So that one's out the window. Mass potentially. Then if you get to the orals, you've got limited exposure.
Yeah, limited exposure. But hey, that could be a fun, like, oh man, I can't wait. I'm going to do this for six weeks, you know, and then I'm going to take 6 weeks back just down at TRT.
Now, here's a bigger question.
What's that?
If you were on a desert island and there was only you and nobody would ever see you, would you bother at all?
Yeah. I mean, I'm pretty much in that position anyway. I never leave the house. It's my wife and I. We are here to just do our thing, and I enjoy training. Like, for me, exercise is like, I like training. And guess what? When you're on gear, it makes training even more fun. So, yeah.
Well, hang on. So you're on a desert island. You got no mirrors.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, I'd say absolutely. Yeah, no question, man. Because for me anymore, like I love the feeling of, I'm going to sound like pumping iron, the pump.
You do realize you can actually train without drugs, you know.
Oh, I know, and I would, but then the gear makes it that much more fun, you know. Now, if we're talking about would you rather have gear or life supporting food, I would definitely pick the food over that.
No, gear, definitely gear. Fuck that. No, who wants to eat?
I'll drink coconut water. It's fine. All right. So
I live off my gains.
Yeah, I don't know what I would pick, man. I'm maybe boring. I'm maybe with you. Maybe a little bit more test would be enough. You know, I because you could do a lot with just some extra test. You know, let's say you were allotted an amp washes up on the beach of 100 milligrams every week. You know. Then you want to add to that, then yeah, maybe bump it up to 300 for a little while.
So you go out every morning with your net fishing for ampules.
Yeah, you never know. Man. All right.
You know, apparently there was a pharmaceutical ship sank many years ago, and
it's possible.
Every now and again it just floats up to the surface.
It's possible. It's kept nice and in a cool, dark environment down there at the bottom of the ocean. How about
there's some big fuck off crabs coming out.
Yeah. Okay, so topic of the day is Superdrol. I have had so many people asking me more and more about Superdrol lately. I've even heard of wellness competitors using it at the very end of their contest peaks. Superdrol was something that I took completely for granted as a kid because it was literally legal, and nowadays it seems like it's getting a resurgence, some new popularity. People are very interested in Superdrol again, from what I see at least. So Dave, what can you tell us a little bit about it?
It's a drug.
Can you say that into the microphone this time?
It's a drug.
Oh, okay.
So Superdrol. Now I might get the dates wrong, so Scott can correct me because I think he's actually checked it.
Pull it back up.
I think it was either 2004 or 2005. It missed classification. So though it is an anabolic steroid, it wasn't classed as one, and that resulted. It was never developed as a pharmaceutical drug. So it was one of these drugs that was experimented with, created, but never used for anything.
Yeah.
So it existed in theory for a large portion of its existence rather than actually being produced as any sort of product. And then famously, Gaspari brought it out as a supplement because it wasn't controlled and they were legally allowed to do so. And it got very popular very quickly. Bear in mind also, this is sort of pre-pro hormones being illegal as well, and pro hormones were hitting the market at the same time. In fact, a lot of people regarded Superdrol as a pro hormone, and it was generally sold under that sort of branding and that sort of marketing. Anyway, they reclassified it, which I think it might have been 2005.
It was 2000. 2005 was the. It says. Okay, hold on. It resurfaced in 2005 as a designer steroid. It was brought to market by Designer Supplements as the primary ingredient in a dietary supplement named Superdrol. Designer Supplements. I thought that it was Gaspari was the. I mean, maybe.
No, I know Gaspari famously sold it, but I don't think they're the ones that brought it to market.
Okay, so Designer Supplements maybe brought it out first. Gaspari famously sold it. Superdrol at the time is being sold literally at GNC,
Yeah, I think it lasted 12, 18 months, and then it got banned. It got reclassified as an anabolic and banned.
Yeah.
The easiest way to describe Superdrol is oral masteron. It is, from a chemical point of view, effectively 17-alkylated masteron.
Yeah.
And from a side, it's got a reputation of being super stressful. It is a little bit more on the stressful side than some of the other orals. I think saying super stressful is probably exaggerating it a little bit, but it's definitely going to show elevation in liver markers for 99% of people. It's a good hardening agent, good strength drug. and very good for fullness, which is why the wellness girls like it, because they don't want to go the whole hog and go Oxy, so they go Superdrol. The thing is, as well, Superdrol, I think now still has a sort of reputation of not quite being an anabolic.
It really does, doesn't it? Some people think it's not. They think it's a pro-hormone or something.
And I mean, at the time when Superdrol was legally available, I mean, people were using it as the oral component of their cycle because they knew they were getting a legit product.
Oh, yeah.
It was regulated. It was old and regulated. So you weren't buying a UGL drug. You were buying a proper legit steroid over the counter.
Yeah.
Then it sort of died a death. People fell out with it. It got a bit of a reputation for being over toxic, and then recently it seems to have made a bit of a comeback. And like you say, it's proven to be arguably a very good alternative for using Oxy for the last sort of 3-4 days before stage if you want to get some nice fullness.
Yeah. So there was a period of time that because it was legal, teenage kids were getting a hold of it and they were running this stuff, and you could go basically into any like high school football locker room, into their gym, and you would see these kids just benching as much weight as they possibly could and getting more jacked and developing gyno. A lot of these kids were dealing with issues as a result of going on gear and then not having any kind of, I mean, it's an overcount of the supplement, man. They just thought like, hey, you just take this. It's not a big deal. And there were a lot of kids that ended up with issues with it as a result. So,
well, we had the same thing with pro hormones.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people that have permanently shut themselves down through, extended, like literally 12, 18, 24 months of pro hormone use because it's over the counter. It's safe. I should be able to use it. And it's that that's driven the classification changes around it. So obviously it became illegal in the States a couple of years back now. And quite a few of them have been added to the controlled list over here as well.
Hey, so to break this down a little bit further, we were saying, okay, so if this is like a 17 alkaloided version of Methasterone, a Methasterone that we are able to then process through the liver, you shouldn't have any type of conversion to estrogen, right? So why is it that there would be tons of kids getting gyno from stuff like this? Because I saw it firsthand.
First thing you've got to question is the compound itself. Second thing would be,
they were getting it from GNC.
Is it interrupting DHT? So DHT plays a role in being anti-gyno naturally. So DHT blocks the estrogen receptors at the breast. If this is lowering DHT in any way, then it would affect that mechanism and would make people more sensitive to gyno. You're going to create hormonal fluctuations because you're going to have suppressions and all over the place. Potentially that's got something to do with it creating problems in that department. It's very difficult to say retrospectively because obviously we can't communicate with the people that got it,
right,
as to what they were doing at the time to get it.
Yeah, that and acne, and it's just funny to think because GNC sees themselves as like such a class act. They same place that, I shouldn't even say it. They used to sell a particular, like a liquid that was helpful for sleep back in the early 90s. And it was...
Well, they used to sell an orange drink as well that was incredibly good for not sleeping.
Oh, are you talking about Ultimate Orange? Yeah, Ultimate Orange is great, man. That was some awesome stuff. Words time. Best pre-workout ever, Dave.
Yeah, fucking liquid fat in a ball.
I didn't understand it at the time, though. I had a tub of that stuff when I was like 14, 15. And,
Jesus Christ.
Oh, I know, man. And you know what I did? I'd mix up a big old glass of it, full scoop, right? So it's got this it's kind of like an orange creamsicle kind of, at the same time, medicine-y flavor. Not the way pre-workouts are today. And I would gulp some of that, and then I would go do like my bench press, and then I'd come back over, and then I'd gulp some more, and then I would do a curl, do some curls. I didn't have the concept down at 14, I guess.
It's quite ironic that you mentioned it. It tasted chemically. Yeah, that'll be the fucking half a ton of ephedrine.
Yeah. Thanks to Dane Duchesne for that one.
Oh,
So,
that stuff was incredible.
Superdrol, guys, I would definitely limit it. Yeah, limit your exposure. I do have clients that come to me and they are like, hey, can we do some Superdrol in this cycle? If we're in the off season, I'll say, okay, yeah, we can. We're not going to use it until much later on. For the most part, I'm going to limit that exposure to 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, something along those lines. It's going to be later in the cycle. This is just the way I personally do it. I'm not saying that there aren't 100 other ways to do it. We're only going to use it a few times a week. I found that when we do use it every day, it only takes a couple weeks before your appetite is shot. So I want to be really careful with that. I know last week, Dave, you said, hey, even though your appetite's shot, you can still eat. You know, you can force feed, but I feel like your digestion, it just isn't the same when you're forcing it down versus if you're maintaining a natural level of hunger to a degree, you know? I mean, it's not going to get you to 415 pounds. I know that.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's even for those that can force feed, it is not a pleasant experience and it is hard, but you know, it all depends on what you want to do at the end of the day.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I would say I'd start with 10 milligrams. I'd maybe go to 20. That's honestly about what I've done. I've used it in contest prep. And once again, maybe 4 weeks out, we're already in really good shape. We may do a test run. We might say, hey, let's take 10 milligrams Superdrol per day for the next 4 days. And I watch how they look every day. We see how that affects them. And if we get a positive look, maybe we even run a test carb up, a test water manipulation with it. If we get the look we want, then maybe we'd consider adding it in. But honestly, man, it's not gonna, in a contest prep, it's not gonna be a huge game changer. As in, you know, it's not gonna be the thing that makes you win the show. You know, if you're gonna win the show, you already were gonna win the show.
What's the highest you've gone with it?
I keep it pretty low, man, for that reason.
Have you ever pushed it high?
No, personally, I had I think a pack of 100 tabs, and this would have been after the ban. And every time I tried to use it, I'd get a few days in, and it destroyed my appetite. So I gave it away. Personally, I went, I believe, to 20 milligrams. I've gone to maybe 30, very limited. What about you?
60.
Yeah, that's a lot, man.
No, I didn't run it for long. Just experimented with it a little bit. I ran that along with GH. Jesus Christ, I was full as a house.
Oh, I bet you were.
Full as a house.
How was your strength?
Not super dramatic, to be fair. I mean, I put it in just to see. I think I probably ran it maybe a week or 2 weeks, and then I pulled it back out again.
Okay.
I've never run it as an actual conscious, right, I'm going to do 6 weeks or 4 weeks with it or whatever.
Okay.
But no, I never got a huge. The only thing I got a significant, and I've mentioned this a long time ago, the only thing I've got a significant strength boost off, as in real, like, dramatic night and day,
yeah,
was a product called Methasterone. I've never seen it since. I've never found anything on it. I've never heard anything of it. I do remember that it came in, and obviously this was the days when we were buying farmer stuff all the time. This would have probably just been on the cusp when UGLs was starting to come into play. So I would have been, we're talking 95, 94, somewhere around there.
Okay. Huh.
And I got this stuff called Methasterone. It had a skull and crossbones on the side. It was marked as a poison.
I'm going to take that.
Oh, yeah. It put 40 kilo on my squat in a week.
You're kidding me.
Oh, mate. But the headaches and the blood pressure was insane.
That's not
I mean, I spent like a week and a half with just a splitting headache constantly, just never left.
Oh, jeez.
But
Yeah.
it made you strong. So to this day, I don't know what that shit was.
All right. Well, listen, guys, if you want to take part in our next podcast, you can ask questions in the YouTube feed. We will tackle your questions in the next episode. And for everybody watching live, you guys are welcome to drop questions in the stream. So I wanted to make sure I tried to get this one on because it's been one of our longtime listeners, Benjamin. Now, he emailed me. Guys, don't email me questions because I will most likely forget them. But I did manage to remember this one. Thank you for watching, Benjamin. And he says, question for you and Dave. He says he's 40. He's always been working out recreationally since high school. But recently, the last 3 years or so, I decided to make a push of my fitness into bodybuilding. So he says, but not competitively. He's about 200 pounds at 14% body fat. I've been working with a bodybuilding trainer for the last year to step up my training and to make a real push on gaining size and strength. We've been pretty successful, but we're looking to step up my supplements to keep improving. In the past, he's used over-the-counter muscle builders, including pro hormones, but currently doing peptides and prescription. He says, my trainer is recommending that I start TRT, 100 milligrams, to keep improving and add more size. My test levels right now are in the middle 500s, so kind of middle of the road range, not low, but not high. My question is TRT a better starting point than an actual gear cycle? For new to gear 40 plus year olds, want 3 to 4 things should we look out for? What 3 to 4 things should we look out for or expect? Great podcast. I listen to you on the channel and share it with my friends often. Cal in Texas. Hey, thanks for sharing with your friends, guys. That's always the best way to get the show promoted. What do you think, Dave?
I think that 100 milligrams is possibly going to put him around 500-600.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's going to be a great deal of advantage. I'd go cycle rather than committing to TRT, which actually, on balance, committing to TRT over doing a cycle, TRT is a much bigger commitment.
Yeah.
So I would go cycle, and then if recovery post cycle is not good, you've got the TRT option. If it is recovered, great. Wait until it doesn't recover, then go on your TRT. But I would do a cycle.
Yeah, I would.
I don't think he's got much to gain from TRT. And I think he'd actually probably get less progress of TRT than he has done over his pro hormone and other cycles that he's done.
Yeah, I'd be with you on that. I mean,
there is one thing I'm curious. Shut up, I've not finished.
Oh, I didn't know. You take long British pauses, okay?
I'm fat. I'm slow. I'm like a sloth in human form. The only thing I was going to say was he said peptides and medications.
Yeah, what was that?
What the fuck are you on, boy?
When I hear peptides and medication, I would assume TRT, but it's not TRT.
No. Right. Sorry. All yours.
Okay. We should roll it back, too, to that previous topic I had. If you're using peptides, what peptides are you using? And if it's like GHRP6 and stuff like that, just get Real Growth instead. Don't be using these secretagogues, guys. You know, Dave, I made that into a YouTube short and Instagram reel, and some people agreed with me, and then there were some people that didn't like that reel, too.
There's always... The thing is with this subject, there's always going to be disagreement because the bottom line is we're making educated guesses on a combination of research that we've read and personal experience and observation from others. Science isn't happy or fully decided on what a lot of this shit does and how it completely works, you know? I mean, studies are not factual documents in the sense that they don't present the law. They are a documentation of a test, of an experiment, and what it showed.
Yeah.
And it takes a large number of these experiments showing the same thing before science then turn around and go, yes, that's what's happening. So yeah, I mean, you're always going to get a plethora of people disagreeing, and
Oh, well, I meant that people thought that, like, because my point was that TRT doctors don't necessarily have your best interest in mind a lot of times. That they have.
It's business.
Yeah, it's business. That's what it comes down to.
Same with the coach that sells you your drugs.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, if your coach is selling you your gear, yeah. I mean, especially if they're pushing it, right?
No, they do it for your convenience, so you have a one-shop stop. You don't have to go anywhere else.
Yeah. All right. So I would say 300 milligrams a test would do a lot more than 100 milligrams a test.
Obviously.
Yeah. That'd be my answer, Dave, to his.
Yeah,
his
I would be on the low end of a 3 push 400, but it sounds like this guy's actually quite on point with what he's doing.
Yep, right.
So yeah, I think 300 would be productive.
Yeah, I think he'd do good with that. 12 weeks, somewhere in there. Come back off. I do a PCT with some enclomiphene afterward. And then give yourself some time, bounce back. I think where people end up losing the progress is after they come off and then they wait a really long period of time before they go back on. You know, if you're really gonna like wait and make sure, you're off for months and months, you know, and then the cycle becomes 1 step forward, 2 steps forward, 1 step back.
Yeah, I would say if you're having more than 3 months off between cycles, then you're likely to start to decline in your muscle mass. But I find that most people, if their training and diet is comprehensive, they're going to get a little bit of a weight drop post-cycle, obviously, as glycogen and water retention reduces.
Yeah.
And then they should, and in most cases, will hold that size and strength solidly for a good 2.5 months.
Yeah.
And it's only when you start pushing beyond the 3 that you start to see them start to struggle to maintain a little bit then. Plus, it also depends on how far above your baseline you are, because obviously the higher you are above your baseline, the harder it is to hold it.
True. All right, let's rapid fire a couple of these. To revisit for the 3rd week, P5P, can you please share with us your dosing again on that, Dave?
So I personally think that effective dosing is between 400 and 500 milligrams per day, which is a pain because the only company I know that makes it in a decent dose is Strom, and they do it as a 150 milligram tablet.
Oh, okay.
So in most cases, you're having to take a large number of tablets daily. I also don't rate it massively for managing nandrolones if you already have prolactin issues, but I think it works better if you preempt it and take it before you start your cycle.
Okay. How would you recommend doing a low dose, longer duration D-ball cycle?
I wouldn't.
No?
No,
we talked about that last week.
So the thing is, if you're going to run long dose, you're going to be 20 milligrams or 30 milligrams. Now, for me, for most people, I would say 30s as a male. 30s. I mean, I know you ran less when you first started. Mr.
This was a long time ago. 15 a day, gained 20 pounds, kept 10. I don't expect anybody else to do that.
But I would have said, you're sort of looking at around 30 milligrams as a minimum effective dose. So, I really, do you want to be running an oral for extended periods of time, even at low dose? I don't know.
I'll tell you what.
I've never seen any data on it, so I don't really know. I mean, I do know that you do have to abuse the living shit to really start to actually cause damage.
Or do the same thing for a really long time,
Yeah. So, I mean, I've seen people run long-term oral, and yeah, the liver gets stressed, but it does recover, but it doesn't mean they're healthy in that period while they're doing it. The other thing is, what's the logic behind this? Why do you want to run it? Because your total anabolic level is going to have a ceiling to how far you're going to go. Yeah. So let's for argument's sake, you're 200 pounds, you've never done anabolics, you go on 30 milligrams of D-ball a day, and you're planning on running that for 18 weeks, 20 weeks.
I don't think he meant that long.
No, but let's just say this is just my example so I can make a point.
Okay.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That's very kind of you.
You're welcome. Anytime, Dave. I'm happy to help.
You're so generous, and I wouldn't be anything without you. Right,
that's really nice of you to say, Dave.
Thank you.
Not a problem.
That's okay. I understand. So the thing is, by about week 8 or 10, you've probably made all the muscle you're going to make off that 30 milligram.
You think?
And if you want any, maybe, all right, maybe. But my point, there's going to become a point where you're not going to make any more progress, even though the drugs are in there, because you've maximized your growth off that dose of anabolics. If that wasn't the case, we wouldn't increase the doses on our anabolics periodically as we move through our usage life.
Yeah, I will say this. No, we're not suggesting anybody runs 25, 30 D-ball a day for 20 weeks by any means. But I would say this. The gains you make at week 16 are definitely not going to be the gains you make at week 3. I'd agree with that.
Point, there's a point of exhaustion where the drugs aren't going to put any more muscle on you, irrespective of how long you run them. And then you're going to be down to what is a baseline natural growth rate, because now that level of anabolics is your sort of baseline. So as a result of that, there is a point where you're just not going to progress off a dose of compound, and that at that point is when the dose needs to go up. Or you change compounds.
I think, Dave, the reason he asked this question was last week I said something about a lower dose of D-ball, and you said, well, with a lower dose, you could run that for a long cycle. You could do a long cycle of D-ball keeping the dose low. So I think that's what triggered him to say that. But when we say long cycle, I could see and I'm using like air quotes here, long cycle of D-ball being 8 weeks at 25 milligrams.
Yeah, I would say 10. But yeah, and the other thing is, a long cycle of D-ball didn't necessarily mean D-ball on its own. It just meant you could tolerate a longer exposure to the drug.
Yeah.
So
with that,
we probably have to be careful that we're a bit more clear.
Yeah.
And clarify things a little bit better. That's your fault. You're supposed to manage this shit. You don't manage me at all.
Yeah, I think 25. And you know what? Listen, if you're doing 25 milligrams of D-ball and you were to say, hey, if I can do it for 10 weeks, I'll run it for 10 weeks. I would definitely get labs at 6 weeks in and say, okay, well, how stressed are things right now? Where am I at? And I mean, how's my blood pressure too, and all that stuff. If you're doing okay, and how's my cholesterol? Maybe go for a couple more weeks, but yeah.
Well, I mean, that's advisable with anything, isn't it? Have a look and see how it goes.
Yeah. Guys, let's talk about intra-workout carbs and saving money. So like the past 10, 15 years, intra-workouts become super popular. It's a great way to support pre-workout insulin use. It's great for recovery, and it's great for endurance in those long workouts. Here's the thing. It's really expensive. It's not only expensive for us, it's expensive for supplement companies. They really don't make a lot of money off of it. That's where True Nutrition comes in. So True Nutrition, they're not only a retailer, they're also a manufacturer. They're actually making a lot of the products that you guys are already buying from other companies. So just think about it. You're going to cut out the middleman. The only thing you're going to miss out on is the fancy labels and the branding. Outside of that, you're getting the exact same high quality products, but you're getting it directly from the source. If you're going to pay for the price of highly branched cyclic dextrin, ensure that you're getting 25 grams per scoop, not of a mix of carbs, but just of highly branched cyclic dextrin. We can mix the other stuff in later, Use our code THINK, get some savings, plus it's like voting for us. It lets them know that you support what we're doing. Hey, Scott, can you make an answer? That's what he says. Maybe he's not from the U.S. What about, about what to expect from Test and Mast and Tren for the first contest prep. I'm lean in upper body 11 to 14%, but my legs are 20 to 22%. I would run this for 9 weeks. Dave?
I'm thinking. I wouldn't run the trend for 9 weeks if it's your first exposure to it. Personally, I would leave that for the last 3 or 4.
Yeah.
Other than that, if you're carrying fat on your lower body half, unfortunately, what you're probably going to have to do is get absolutely bone shredded upstairs to bring your legs in. Once you've done it once, you'll find it much easier to get your legs in the second time. But the very first time, it is a ball ache. You have to go super, super hard, get your legs to come in, and you need to judge your condition not on your upper body that you already know comes in quickly, but on your lower body, because that's what is your true condition. So a lot of people, when they judge their condition, they'll judge it on their best body part or their best area. Really, you should judge it on your worst area, because that's where your fat is holding. So you may find that you have to an extent, almost over diet to get the legs in, and then come back up once they are in, and you'll hold that condition much better when you come back up.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, people, when we talk about genetics too, people with really good genetics for bodybuilding tend to hold their fat evenly over their bodies. If you have, you know, as a coach, as I'm working with somebody, I'll see what their problem areas are. And after we get them absolutely peeled, like love handles are a big one for males. You start looking at that lower back, and even though everything, like they might still have abs, they might even still have veins in their abs, but when we see that lower back starting to get too thick, I know that we're reaching a limit, you know, because no matter how lean they are, you're going to have to burn the rest of the house down to get those love handles to come in, you know, and it could mean you can't not do that because literally you're only as lean as your fattest body part. So I would say guys with problem areas, they're the hardest to diet, which is most of us. That's the common thing. All of us generally, unless we have progenetics, tend to have uneven fat distribution. It may take a lot longer than you think in order to get those legs in.
I have a love shelf.
A love shelf?
Mm-hmm.
You like, instead of love handles, you have a love shelf?
I have a love shelf, yeah. Love ledge.
A love ledge? That sounds nice. Muffin top. That's another word. You have a muffin top?
This ain't a muffin, mate. This is a 3-tier cake.
Okay. Patreon question. He says, gotta open this one up, blow it up so I can see it. A little more size here. Here we go. All right. Says, I know this has been covered before, but I'm losing my mind and I don't know what to do. Lower back pumps. I haven't been able to properly train legs for the last couple of weeks. After basically only 2 to 3 sets of Smith machine squats, my back is on fire and I have to leave the gym. I have tried taurine up to 10 grams a day with no change. Is losing weight the only option? I'm around 20 to 25% body fat. I naturally have a quite pronounced anterior pelvic tilt. So my lower back is pretty much always flexed and arched, if that has any effect on it.
Are there any drugs involved would be the first thing. How's your estrogen management would be the second thing. The third thing would be test your hamstring flexibility and your glute flexibility. The most likely situation is that your hams and glutes are tight and therefore they're pushing stresses into your lower back. So I would review form, because generally if a back is supported and stabilized, it shouldn't pump because it's not moving. And you don't really get much of a pump in a muscle when it's not moving. So they would suggest that your lower back is moving, which could be a few things. But if your glutes and hams are tight, as you go down on a hack squat, it's going to pull your glutes forward, which is going to flexate your lower spine, and as a result cause pumps to appear. So I find that more often than not, lower back pumps can maybe not be purely cured, but can be drastically improved by getting some better flexibility in glutes and hamstrings.
Yeah, I could see that for sure, man. I feel like all of us in bodybuilding tend to lack that flexibility in our hamstrings and in our hip flexors.
And I think a lot of it is to do with that we generally use machine work to build our hamstrings.
Mm.
So we don't get the same stretch as we
Oh,
would do if we used barbell work.
okay. Yeah. I do think that getting tighter would help. Getting rid of some of the
No,
water.
it's not going to do any harm. Definitely losing body fat is not going to do any harm. But we don't know if there's any anabolics in play here as well. I mean, has he got high estrogen, which is complicated by the fact that he is carrying more body fat?
Yeah. I've had so many situations where somebody I'm working with says, I can't believe I'm eating more food than I ever have, and we're in an off season, by the way, and I'm actually getting tighter in the process, And I think if you get the diet right, you hold a lot less water.
Yeah, definitely. I think people don't value how beneficial a clean diet is in the off season.
Yeah.
It allows you to push your calories higher.
Yeah.
Without gaining excess fat. It makes much better management of your insulin sensitivity, which is going to get hammered in the off season anyway. It gives you more baseline energy for exercise. It gives you more nutrient for recovery. Just keeping it clean. But we tend to, particularly if you're competitive, we tend to have this a little bit of a, I've prepped for 16 weeks, 20 weeks, whatever it is, and I want to break from that now. So they go into the off season being a little bit looser than they should be. And really, off-season should be as clean as comp, just more food.
How about this one from the live stream? K.S. Berry just commented. He says, coming back from a patellar tendon full tear, how would you approach getting around that atrophied leg, getting it to par, as well as getting the quad firing again? I had surgery on my patellar tendon. Did you know that, Dave?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, it wasn't major. They basically took a piece of my patellar tendon and then grafted it on as an ACL for the other knee. So back in 96 or 97, they used to use a piece of your patellar tendon from the good leg and turn that into the ACL for the torn ACL. Nowadays they use cadaver, and that's the best method. At the time, that meant that both of my legs were splayed open at the knee, all stitched up like Frankenstein. And then I had to have splints on both of my legs. And I was in a wheelchair for 30 days. I couldn't walk for a month.
I think that's horrendous.
It sucked, dude. I had to have like this, there's like a board. And if you're in your wheelchair, you go over to the bathroom. I was a kid at the time. I was still like later teenager. So I'm living at my parents' house, and we had a small house, a small bathroom, and you had to take that board and take the arm off your wheelchair. Anybody who's been in a wheelchair knows this, and then put the board down on the toilet in the wheelchair, and then scoot over to the board, and then scoot over to the toilet, and then get rid of the board, and then push the chair out, and then close the door. Oh my God, man, that was a mess.
Been there.
Yeah.
With regards to this, I think that the one thing is you've got to do your rehab.
Yes.
And you've got to be patient. That doesn't mean, but you also, and it's a fine balance, you have to be patient, but you also need to be brave. Because it's very easy to be very scared of that knee now. It's very easy to be very precious of that knee. And you need to force it to do the work, but it must be in a controlled and measured manner. I would probably start with some single leg work. Yeah, I saw that comment.
K.S. Barry, he said, leave it to Scott to make this about him. Isn't that right, Dave? Screw always. You, K.S. Barry. We're not going to answer your question now.
By the way, have you been on MT2 again?
What do you mean again? I never stopped.
All right. You're looking nice and red today.
Better check my blood pressure, huh?
You better check you look like my t-shirt. So I would say start with some individual leg work. Once you get that leg to the point where it's competent enough to be able to move, then I would start doing it with both legs, but just have more mental focus on the weak side. The danger of doing single leg work on both sides is that you'll possibly start to even create a bigger gap between the development of the two legs, because you'll be progressing on your good leg while still playing catch up on your bad leg. So what you really need to do is let your good leg maintain while your bad leg catches back up with it.
I was asking him how long his physical therapy was. He said he cleared the initial rehab.
Why did you type that? He's listening to the show.
Because you were talking, and I didn't know if sometimes when you start talking, you don't stop, okay? And I didn't want to interrupt you again. I didn't want to get yelled at by you. Dave, don't flick rubber bands at us. You're flicking them at me in the audience.
No, I'm flicking them at you.
Listen, so he said he cleared his initial rehab. And I'll tell you, man, the exercise bike is, I'm sure he's done a lot of exercise bike. It's great for being able to kind of begin rebuilding that stuff up. And then there's all the balance work you have to do, which is a pain in the butt, man. You know, you're balancing on one foot and then you have to twist over here and turn this and all of this. Those things are all so important because they're just like the basic foundational stuff. In 3 months every day. And he's back to training now. I would say, man, just take it really light. You know, I'd take it light and I'd keep the reps up really high. What about any kind of growth at this point, Dave? Any kind of maybe a little couple of units of GH?
I would suspect that he's actually healed, and that the issue now is not healing; it's strength and confidence.
Yeah.
That tendon's going to need developing in its strength because it's currently going to be weak. But I suspect after 3 months it's going to be healed. So
I would still throw some growth at it, a couple of units.
I would start. I'd start light, high rep, as you've said, and I would just be progressive. So it might be week 1 is 5 kilograms, 30 reps. Week 2 is 7.5 kilograms, 28 reps. You know, and you just slowly bring the weight up and the reps down as you gain confidence, and it gets better.
Good man. 4 I use every day. He said, yeah, the bike sucked as range of motion could come back. You could hear the scar tissue popping. Whew.
It may also be worthwhile getting some tissue work on it as well, just to keep it supple.
How about this one? Georgina from Patreon. She says, interested to hear your experience with clients using Roacutane for acne as a last resort when nothing has worked, specifically caused by hormone fluctuations.
Haven't got a lot of experience with Roacutane, to be honest. I have had a couple of clients that have run it, and they've got on well with it with no major issues. But I know it can be very problematic for some people, but I haven't had anyone that's had, and I've only had a couple of people ever use it. So I can't really comment on this one.
You got to be really careful with it. I've used it twice, and I've known a number of people to use it. I had just, what do you call it? Like just genetics for acne. And as a teenager, I got it, and then gear would cause it. And then I used Accutane, and it literally fixed it. It literally changed the way my skin reacted. With using it through the doctor, they start you lower and then they work your way up, and you might be taking like 80, 100 milligrams per day, and you might be running that for several months, really trying to, basically what we're doing is you dry out the sebaceous gland so that we get an overproduction of that oil spreads, or the pore gets clogged. We get infections of the skin as a result, and that's acne. We reduce that. Basically, at first, we push all the oil out, from the sebaceous gland, and over time, we dry that out. So the key is using it long enough to basically dry the sebaceous gland out and permanently alter it so that it never will produce that same amount of oil again. So it's kind of an uncomfortable experience because you get so dry. Your lips will crack. You have to use chapstick constantly. The inside of your nose gets really dry. Now, like I was starting to say, doctors will push that dose up, but the bros back in the day talked about using it differently. We talked about on the message boards of maybe 40 milligrams or even 60 milligrams, getting to that point where you're really dry, and then just trying to keep it there long enough and sometimes not even taking it every day. Guys were doing like every other day, stuff like that. I think the problem with only taking it every other day is you might not be able to get that skin dry enough. I ended up finding, for me, 60 milligrams for about 2.5 months after I worked up to that, like 3-4 months total, was good. Keep in mind, though, it's really toxic on the liver. You have to remember that. Also, it can have like a lot of issues with mood. They have like warnings of depression and potential self-deletion in the literature about that, the insert that comes with it. And further, everything gets dry, and that includes your connective tissue. So there are warnings of Accutane that you can develop injuries if you exercise. So that's the big one that I really want to warn people about, because I don't think you hear a lot about that, but it says it right in the insert that exercise, you may get injured more easily.
Going back to K.S. Berry, how he was on about nerve firing and stuff, I'd do some time and attention work if you're struggling with nerve function.
Yeah.
Yeah, very good for re-educating your nerval system.
All right. Let's see if I can find a couple quick ones here. Adam says, general training question. How many working sets a week are most people doing, assuming they are training to failure?
I used to work on 2 per exercise, 3 exercises for major body part, 2 exercises for a minor body part. Sometimes it'd be an extra 1, depending on what I was doing and how I was feeling. I had this discussion with Zach this week, actually. I think you have to follow a program when you first start training, and you really have to learn the form of the exercises you do. And it's a bit like learning to walk or learning to drive. So you learn by the rule book. So you learn to drive as in accordance with what the driving instructor teaches you to do and the rules of the road. But then once you're driving, you start to develop your own style. Now, you'll pick up bad habits, which we do in training as well, but you'll also start to develop your own way that you're comfortable in driving. And it might not quite be by the playbook. And it's the same with training. Once you've mastered the basics, which, to be honest, a lot of people never actually do.
Yeah.
Because they just focus on more weight or more reps and never actually get to the point where they understand what the exercise is doing and how the body's moving. Then you can start, you need to, well, you don't need to, but I would advise that you start to become instinctive. At the end of the day, the goal of your training is not to move X weight or move X reps. Your goal of your training is to stimulate that muscle to grow. Now, if you've got a rep and set structure and exercise structure, that's fine. But if you get to the end of that and it's like, you know what, I'm not there, throw a couple more extra working sets in. At the same time, if you get 2/3 of the way through it and it's like, you know what, I am done. My chest is absolutely trashed. I can't lift my arms. You've done the job. Go home. But people don't have the confidence to make those decisions. They get comfort in sitting to a program, which, okay, can guarantee a minimum volume, but it can also be very misleading on the fact that you're leaving stuff in a tank or you're not gone as far as you could do. So I'd say, you know, once you've mastered it, as long as you're pushing your limit on a couple of sets, and I wouldn't always work on weight either. So I used to do one failure set with weight and one failure set with reps. But always making sure that I was feeling what I was doing. And if I wasn't feeling what I'm doing, I'd back off. I'd go lighter until I did.
Yeah.
And I do think you need to just read the situation, but it takes time to get the confidence to do that. And I think a lot of people stagnate in their training because they're so fixed in this, so many sets, so many reps, you know, and I have a deload week at week 8 or whatever, and I do this at that, and I do this at that. And whereas if you listen to your body, you'll know when you need to back off, and you'll know when you're good to push. And I might be doing TUT on chest because I'd lost feeling it because chest was always the body part I struggled to connect with. I might be pushing max weights on squats because I was just feeling strong at the moment, and I might be doing something else with another body part, and I might be not training shoulders at all that week because they are absolutely trashed and they need a break. So, people like this rigid plan of I do this, I do that, and I do the other. And though it can help, it should be a tool to step towards being instinctive and listening to your body and learning what works for you.
Yeah.
Rant over.
I feel like, so I know this listener, and he's been over to the house to train before, and he's newer to lifting still. Now, when we worked out together, it was I think it was a good 3 years ago now. He's been really consistent since. He's made huge fat loss progress to done it all on his own. Like he asked me for some help at times, giving him direction, but then he took the ball and he ran with it. I still think that just based off of what I see across the board, he's still what I would consider to be newer to lifting. I think that it takes years to be able to get to the point where you can push with like absolute intensity and be able to do something like a DC training type workout, for instance, where, it's just as limited as it can be, everything you've got to failure, one set, that's it, I know that I had tried to.
Can I just interject, please? I've found very few people ever capable of performing at that level.
Yeah. And the longer you get into it, the closer you can get to that. But I think at his stage, I would say for anybody who's got 5 years or less into training, it's gonna be you 5 more years, and what you thought was failure will be redefined again. What you think is failure and hard pushing now is probably way different than it was 2 years ago. You know what I mean? And I promise you that if you continue to train, you will continue to redefine that. You'll get better and better at using that target muscle to continue to drive. In fact, you'll get to a point where you can use just that target muscle. When we first try to push to hard failure, everything gets involved. You know what I mean? I'm trying to bench press, but my lats are in there, my abs are in there, my legs are in there. Everything is pushing. When you really get good at it, you get better at using the target muscle. I think for him, I would say that a lot of people are doing like the top set, back off set thing. I would say with only a few years of training experience, you might not be ready for that yet. And I say that because I think you'll get more out of having more volume. The more volume allows you to make up for, and we've talked about that on Muscle Minds, in intensity, being able to push to hard failure is the number one way to grow. But what we can't get with intensity, to a degree, we can make up for with volume. So I would say for him, maybe 9 working sets per body part would probably be a good place. His question being how many working sets are people doing per week? I'd say if you shot for 9 sets for chest, 9 sets for back, 9 to 12 for legs, 9 sets for buys, 9 for tries, 9 for shoulders, you'd be in a good spot.
I would argue less for buy and tries, but yeah, I'm pretty much at the same place.
Less for what?
Saying buys and tries.
Yeah, you could do less for buys and tries.
I think people overtrain buys and tries.
Yeah.
I was going to say something and it's completely gone out of my head. It was relevant as well. It was actually not bad, and it's gone completely out of my head.
Let's see if we can nail through a couple more of these really quick. How long does it take for cosmetic changes from trend? Thinking about throwing it in 3 weeks before a trip to Mexico at the end of October. Thanks.
Down to the individual, I suppose, on that one. If you want to throw it in, throw it in. I personally wouldn't, but...
Yeah, how lean are you too, right?
Yeah, I my thoughts on training. It's a drug that should be used sparingly and as minimal as possible.
Yeah, if you're 25, even 20, 18% body fat, I could see throwing in a bunch of cardio and a little bit of clen as making a much bigger difference than throwing Trenin would. And yeah, 3 weeks of a bunch of cardio. Let's say you're doing no cardio, and now you go to 45 minutes a day, slow, steady state, and you're taking 20 micrograms of clen in the morning. I'd like to put that guy up next to the Tren guy who does nothing different but adds Tren, and see which one looks better after 3 weeks.
You know which one's going to look better.
It'd be a fun experiment. All right, where are we at? Oh, we're kind of running a little bit late, Dave. We got time.
That's because we talked about cars.
We did. One more then. We'll make this real quick then. Question for the show: do you believe that conditioning and muscle hardening is a drug thing, or a diet thing, or a training thing?
All of the above, really. To some extent, all of the above.
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately, conditioning is going to be diet. It's going to be losing body fat. But hardness definitely has an impact of drugs and training.
Yeah.
You're not going to get hard by diet alone, but you will get hard depending on how you train and the drugs you use.
But you're right. If you pick just one of the three, you're not going to show anything if you're not dieted down.
Yeah.
You know, if you're 30% body fat, muscle hardness isn't going to look that great.
No, I mean, so condition is driven by diet. That's without doubt. The drugs help, but they will never replace the diet. They might mean you can get away with slightly less effort on the diet, but they're not going to replace it. But if you want to be truly lean, as in shredded to the bone on stage lean, you've got to do the work. You're not getting there with drugs.
Yeah. David, do you have any Uncle Dave's wisdom for us?
I'm struggling at the moment from a point of view is I can't remember what I've said and what I've not said. So,
well, you said keep swimming before.
Have I? Oh, that was what I was going to use today, actually. Just keep swimming.
You've got one new one. I know you do.
I don't, actually.
I have faith in you.
I had someone actually message me wanting Dave's advice away from this program.
What do you mean?
They actually messaged me, and I thought they wanted a drug consult, but they didn't. They wanted a consult about Dave's advice.
Do you remember when we had, what was it called? Ask Davey?
Yeah.
That was like a love advice segment that we used to do at the end of the show. And we'd have people write in with their romance questions.
Their problems.
Let me ask you this. After a first date, how many days should you wait before you call her?
That actually gives me an idea. That has actually given me an idea. And it's actually spawned from a client of mine, actually.
Okay. But answer my question. Is it how many days? Because if you call that night, right, or the next day, you might look too eager, you know?
No, I would say maybe not call, but I would definitely communicate, maybe a text the next day and say, thank you for last night. Really enjoyed it. Hope you did. Would like to do it again sometime. And leave it at that and see what the response is. If you get nothing back, I'd give it a couple of days and then ring and be more deliberate and just go, do you fancy going back out? And if they go, well, not really, go, right, fine, no problem, bye. What I wouldn't do is leave it hanging for forever and ever.
Yeah, don't weary.
I either want to know, or if it's not a goer, fine, I enjoyed it, thank you for your time, move on.
Yeah, I like that.
Now that comes to another point.
Okay.
And it actually, so it actually stemmed from someone who was going on dates and wasn't sticking to their plan. And I said, it doesn't stop you sticking to your plan. And they said, well, I'm going to look a bit odd eating salad on a date. Well, no, because you want them to know who you are, not who you want to pretend to be, because that doesn't result. And so on a broader spectrum, you need to be true to yourself if you want people around you that like you for you.
Okay.
If you are somebody else when you're with somebody, and we're very guilty of this when we're trying to impress the new person in our lives. But if you pretend to be someone you're not, or you're put on false airs and graces, or whatever it may be, but you're just not your true self, you're not going to keep that charade up forever. And the problem is then that the person you're trying to attract is attracted to the person you're pretending to be. So when you no longer maintain that pretense and they see the real you, they may not like what they see. So you're always better being you.
Yeah.
Warts at warts. That doesn't mean deliberately be an obnoxious shit, because you can be at times, but it just means don't pretend to be somebody you're not. Be true to who you are, and be true to what you're doing. If bodybuilding is your passion, don't hide it from a potential partner, because it's a big part of your life. They need to know about it if they're going to be involved with your life. Just be you and let people like you for you. Because if you try and be it gets easier with age, but a lot of people do this all the time. They try and be the person they think the person they're talking to wants them to be, not just in relationships, but in friendships and working relationships as well.
Yeah.
Whereas just be yourself. I mean, that doesn't mean be obnoxious and be abusive or be like that. It just means, but don't be something you're not either. There's manners and politeness is one thing, but then pretending to be interested in architecture, for God's sake, and you can't stand the stuff or something stupid like that. It's just ridiculous if you're trying to attract someone or appear interesting to someone. You want people to be interested in you, and believe it or not, however boring and miserable you may think you are interesting to other people.
That's good advice. That's good. Oh, you made me feel good about myself for a minute, Dave.
No, but it's true, isn't it? We all do it. We try and put on a good first impression, and it's like, just be true to who you are, but at the same time, don't be a twat.
Did you know that next week is the Olympia?
I didn't I knew it was close. I couldn't remember if it was next week or the week after.
Yep, it's next week. We leave on Wednesday.
I don't care. It's not. There's a much bigger show going off next week.
What's going on next week?
Massive show. Best one of the year.
What is it?
It's the Eval bodybuilding show.
Eval is happening what weekend?
Next weekend.
So not this weekend. Upcoming.
This weekend coming. Yeah.
Okay. Coming. The week before the Olympia. Okay.
This coming Sunday is the biggest show on the planet.
Oh wow. Well, I hope everybody is there. Although they're not going to see this until Monday, the day after.
Yeah, that's a bit shit, isn't it? Yeah, forgot.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the live people can spread the word. All 11 of them.
Yeah.
In fact, one of them's you. 9 of them.
How about Pillars of Gear? How is that going?
Course 1 full. Course 2's got 3 places left, and then that's it.
All right. You like how I renamed that?
Pillars of Gear.
Yeah, I think that's good.
I think I call it Gears of War.
They already took that. That's a game or something, I think.
It is, but I'm going to pinch it because I like the graphics.
Yeah. Just change the graphics and just call it Pillars of Gear.
Yeah, I might do that, actually.
It's good. Easy enough. Get your web girl to do that.
You leave my web girl alone. In fact, I've got to do videos for her. I haven't done them. I'm going to be in trouble.
Yeah?
Get shot with that.
All right. Well, we'll let you get going, Dave. We appreciate you taking the time to, try to yell at me and stuff like that.
It's for your own good, Scott. I'm helping you grow as a person. I am. I'm helping you mature so that your personality matches your hair.
Oh, okay. Well, we appreciate you guys tuning in. And, of course, like I said before, leave questions for us for the next show. Of course, Evo, bloodanalysis.com. Get your lab work done by Dave if you're in the UK, and Strom Sports Nutrition. Great health and performance supplements, including joint supplements for your dog. You got to take care of your dog, guys. You want your dog to be in your life as long as possible. Get some good joint supplements for him. Keep him on his feet for longer. Supplementsource.ca for Canadians. Great deals that change week to week. TrueNutrition.com. Use our code THINK over there. You can reach out to me and Dave for coaching. I've got our info down below. Hit us up. And we'll be after the Olympia. We are going to break down everything with the transformation contest. After that, guys, we'll see you soon. All right. Another episode of Drugs and Stuff, Dave.
It seems strange me trying to help you develop your personality when you're 10 years older than me.
I know. It's really weird. I'm actually, I think, older than that. Would it be 60?
Older than dust.
60
you're
this
older
month.
than dust.
Oh, boy. Thanks, Uncle Dave. That's what